Newcastle are in the Champions League, way ahead of schedule, which means that this summer's transfer recruitment could be absolutely game-changing, and that's where we come in, because this is sensible transfers, and what we do in sensible transfers is we look for weaknesses in a squad and we identify solutions to those problems. We don't do it based on rumours or conjecture. What we do is we look at what we think the most sensible choice to fix the problem is and recommend a transfer or two on that position. That's what we do in sensible transfers. And we're going to look at Newcastle today, as you probably guessed from everything else I've said so far. So let's look at Newcastle. What do we have to consider? Well, as we said, they're way ahead of schedule. They weren't meant to be in the Champions League yet. And that means they have to ramp up their transfer strategy accordingly and bring in better players, basically. Now, of course, being in the Champions League means they have a wider market. They can attract players to the club they would never normally have been able to without Champions League football. That's really good. But we should consider that Newcastle's transfer strategy up till now has been remarkably sensible already. What they've done is looked for the right kind of characters and players with the right characteristics to suit the team. And if you look at what they brought in already, like Nick Pope, not the best goalkeeper in the world, but God, he's really good for them. Sven Botman, not an absolute leader, but has turned into a really capable, brilliant defender in the back line. Dan Burn, not the best player whatsoever, but he brings the right attitude, determination. He's really tall. You got to have some tallness in the team. That's what he does. Great player. And then you got Kieran Trippier, excellent right backs. None of these are like world beaters, but they turned into a really solid team, and they're all the right sort of level and the right age profile. And then what they've done there to raise it up a level is bring in the extra stardust. So players like Bruno Guimaraes, who's absolutely brilliant, and then you've got Alexander Isak, who is an absolute star and could, will go on to be one of the stars of the Premier League. I've absolutely no doubt about that. So that's what they've done so far. But of course, the knock-on effect of suddenly being really good is that opponents will play differently against you and adjust tactically. So where in the past, Newcastle might have been quite direct and got in behind and chased up and been really intense, now teams are probably likely to sit deeper in a low block, which makes it very hard to create. And when you have players like St. Maximin and Almiron who want to run directly at you, when there's no space in behind to get around or when there's no room to run through, how do they create goals? We know they need to score more. They scored 68 in the league last season. When you compare that to teams above them like Arsenal and Man City, Arsenal had 88 and Man City had 94. So Newcastle need to score more goals, and to score more you have to create more. So we need to look at certain profiles of players that can improve that. So let's start with the wide forwards. We'll go with the left. Now, St. Maximin might be the option here they've got. He's still a decent player, doesn't really produce much in terms of numbers and goals and assists, but a very dribbly boy, very scary to play against, so an option you've got there. They've got lots of options on this wing actually. Anthony Gordon, signed about £40 million, very direct player, useful for getting in behind and pressing high up the pitch. This is very relevant to what they want to do. Alex Isak has played as his left side and then come inside to join Callum Wilson up front, so he could also play in this position if they want him to. Then you've got players like Elliot Anderson trying to break through as a youngster. You've had Joe Willock play in that wide position before in the past as well, and Joe Linton often plays there as more of a pressing forward, because you have to remember what Eddie Howe's tactics up till now have been. It's all about playing with intensity and with tactical discipline. So they want to try and win the ball high up the pitch, lots of hard work, lots of trying to win the ball back in that position. So if you can't create chances through passing, you can do it through pressing, similar to what Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool did in the past. So this is the kind of options they've got on the left. So this is okay for what you want to do. On the right, it's not quite as strong. You've got Miguel Almiron and you've got Jacob Murphy, who are the real options. Maybe Ryan Fraser, who's been retained, can play on either side if he doesn't go out on transfer or on loan somewhere. But these two here, so Almiron, you can't really rely on. He scored 11 goals last season. He was a real star for them, only 2 assists, and that's kind of come out of nowhere. So a lot of players have improved under Eddie Howe, especially Almiron. He's one of the best examples. And he played wide, come inside here and try and attack, but he's not going to be able to thread passes through and create for anyone else. So if you're playing against a low block, maybe that's not quite so useful. Jacob Murphy, good player, but what he's really good at is off the ball stuff. So again, tactically disciplined, winning the ball back high up the pitch, and that's what you've got. So the improvement really needs to be in this position here, because we also know that Kieran Trippier, the right back, who will start almost every game, will overlap often, get to about this position, and that's where he's dangerous with his crosses into the box. Because Dan Burn might tuck in like this to give you a bit of a 3 at the back. That's maybe what they do. If not, Burn pushes forward, but not quite so high. So we know Trippier will overlap, which means you can bring someone from the right onto their left foot to cut inside into these sorts of half-space areas where they need to create. So let's find the perfect profile player for that. And our pick for this player is Musa Diabi. Now yes, he has been linked with the club in the past, but it's because it's a very sensible transfer. It makes absolute sense. This guy's a 23-year-old winger. He's French. He can play on either the right, the left, or as a 10. He's very creative, and this is what his FBref numbers say about him. As you can see, he's really good at carrying the ball, progressive carries. He gets the ball into the box. Assists, shots, non-penalty goals. He's very high in upper percentiles for lots of things you want for this specific role. But when you see how he plays for Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen, you start to see more of it. He's absolutely key to them, and he produces numbers. So yes, he's very good at dribbling, he can do that sort of things, but he produces goals and assists, and he can also carry the ball past players into effective positions to make more things happen with it. And if you compare him statistically to someone he'd replace like Almiron, you see that he covers more distance, has more progressive carries. He also has the 28th highest shot creating actions per 90 in the Bundesliga last season. But the key is that when you look at Bayer Leverkusen's squad, he has the most goals and assists of anyone in the league last season for them, with 9 goals and 8 assists. He produces the numbers that you need in that position, either as a goal threat or someone who can create chances for others. He's a great choice. And so of course he'd fit into the team as either playing on this right side where he comes inside to the half spaces where Trippier overlaps, or you could play him on the left if you want to play Almiron on this side or whoever you've got there, or you can play him if it's a little system change, you can play him just behind the striker and you can roam around and do all these sorts of things. A lot of his goals come from round about this position where he can shoot a good long range shot. So Diabi is our first pick as a sensible transfer for Newcastle in this wide right forward position. But he will be very expensive because, as we know, he's an established player. He's really important to Bayer Leverkusen. He's got a high potential ceiling. He's a young age. He's a really expensive player. So if Newcastle are trying to be more sensible and go a bit cheaper, there is an option they can go for. So according to reports, this player has a release clause that makes him affordable. But this player we're going to recommend next is one of the most exciting talents in all of world football. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the world at some point soon. And that player is Arda Güler. This guy, he comes in and we take Almiron out. Now, Arda Güler, you might not have heard of this guy before. He is absolutely brilliant. He's 18 years old. He's already been capped by Turkey, but there is so little data available for him that I can't even show you an FBref profile. But I can show you this, the screen grab from Turkey's last game against Wales, in which Güler scored a wonder goal from here. This is him here. Punts that into the very top corner. He's got brilliant technique. Now this guy is a dribbly, creative playmaker. He looks a little bit like how Pedri does in terms of stature and the way he moves in and out of space. But what he does, he can play off the right here as a winger, he can play inside as an advanced playmaker, maybe as a false 9 or as a 10. But in this position here, he does lots of things with the ball. He's not lightning fast, so he's not going to take you on as a winger and go past you. But what he does is got this real deceptive turn of pace, and he slows down and speeds up to send defenders off balance. So he might start and stop and weave his way in and out of tackles, but what he does is then he creates something with it. So he'll carry the ball regularly towards loads of players, maybe dribble through a couple of them, and then he'll find a through pass to someone like a striker and thread it through. He's got a great weight of pass as well. His vision is exceptional. He knows where to be and when. Another thing he does that you'll notice, he's only 18, remember, is that he might like hide behind the defender like this. Say they're building down this side here. He'll hide here, so it looks like there's no pass on, and just as he knows that this player has to release the ball, he'll spring in front, give an option, and then he might either turn with it and charge inside, go through these sort of players, or he might then thread it through, or he might find a reverse pass, so this guy acts as a wall bounce pass. He's incredibly talented already. And yes, what I'm describing does sound quite a lot like what Lionel Messi's done in the past, and he has been described as a Turkish Messi. Now, of course, he's young still, he's got high potential ceiling, could go, but he's already got 4 caps for Turkey, and been a real key part of the Fenerbahce team he currently plays for. And as a result, he'll be in talks with all the big clubs in Europe, I have no doubt, and he can kind of pick and choose where he wants to go. And if you look at his career, the best option might be to go somewhere like Ajax or Benfica, so it's a level above where Fenerbahce are. Maybe he keeps improving that way. But if you were to go straight to somewhere like the Premier League, and there's really high level, the best possible option for him is probably Newcastle, and there's a few reasons for it. So first of all, what you have already are players they can rely on in Almiron and Jacob Murphy. They already do a job in that regard. Maybe not Champions League level, but they do a job. So Güler would have to fight to work his way into this position. He can also tends to play in this sort of third midfielder role with more of an advanced playmaker. So you get some creativity in the final third, which they lack already. So that's another benefit for them there. If you have a player playing off this, it doesn't have to be a forward who's trying to attack the goal all the time. It can be someone that starts wide, but moves inside the pitch, as Güler often does, and they get the overlap here, and then he can move in between lines and create from here, or he can play deeper and create from here in front of a block. And we're saying a team's going to be in a low block against him. You need someone who can pick a ball here, spot passes, and spread the play. And that's what Güler already does as a youngster. So at Newcastle, he'd be able to come in as a substitute, get minutes when he needs to, as he's adjusting to a new league, a new country, a new team. That's what you want with no pressure. They can already rely on Almiron and Murphy in that position just now. But in a 2 or 3 seasons time, you're going to have one of the best young players in the entire world on your books, someone you've given minutes to and developed as part of the team. So it makes absolute sense in that regard to me. So in summary, Arda Güler is amazing. And he also has reportedly a release clause of about £17.5 million. So it's a cheaper option. And that is Newcastle's attack. That's how we think they can solve their wide forward problems quite easily in the market. And that brings us on to our next area of contention or weakness in Newcastle squad, and that is in defence. Now, this defence, this back five, we give these here, we include Pope in the back five, had the joint best defensive record in the Premier League last season with 33 goals conceded, which is the same as Man City. So we know their defence is already really, really strong. And the individuals within that were Trippier, Schär, Botman, Burn. When they play, they don't concede goals. When they change that, when they take Schär out or they put in Lascelles, it's noticeably more vulnerable and they have conceded in those sorts of games. So we know they need more depth, and we know they probably need an upgrade to a couple of positions. So at left back, Dan Burn maybe isn't the best player, but he gives you the right characteristics and determination. And although we could easily go with a left back and try and say someone like Kieran Tierney, who is the obvious sensible transfer, you all know who Kieran Tierney is, and they've been linked with him constantly. Instead, we're going to focus on what we think is a more urgent need rather than a left back, which has already worked with Burn and Matt Targett on the bench. What you've got is Fabian Schär, who was excellent last season as part of the partnership with Sven Botman. Now, Botman is the future. Schär could quite easily be replaced or upgraded with someone else. We need to look at what sort of player we want to have in that profile, because the depth is Lascelles and that's it. So in respect to the partnership that already works between Schär and Botman, we have a couple of suggestions. Now, the first one is a big money buy. Say they're going to put a lot of their budget into this one purchase everywhere available. What they would get is a long-term solution to their centre-back partnership. He could be one of the best players in the Premier League over time. He's an exceptional young talent, and that player is Antonio Silva. Now, this guy is a Portuguese international, plays for Benfica, just won the league with Benfica, was also excellent in the Champions League for them. Now, you can see his statistics here. What this doesn't tell you is that he's a right-sided centre-back with an excellent range of passing. It kind of shows you here that his progressive passes is very high and his pass completion rate. He's really good on the ball. He's very strong and very quick as well. So he's got good recovery pace for playing in a high line, which is useful for Newcastle because they'll do that. He's also excellent in the air. So he's just one of these good centre-backs that's strong, can deal with problems, but also crucially is very composed and cultured in possession. So you can then build from the back. We're talking about how Newcastle are going to play against low blocks. Need to be able to build better from the back so they're not shelling it long and then it coming straight back at them. So if they can build from the back, Antonio Silva would be a high-level version of this, but he would cost them north of £80 million. So it might be a sensible, but it's maybe not realistic, because that would be all the budget mostly gone. And so, because of that, our actual sensible transfer pick is Armel Bella Kotchap of Southampton. He was relegated last season, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. No, sir. This guy's also very, very good. Now, sure enough, Bella Kotchap might have been relegated with Southampton last season, but he showed plenty of what he can do in that team. And what he can do is destroy stuff. He's a destroyer of worlds and strikers. He steps in early to win the ball high up the pitch. So let's replace Schär with Bella Kotchap. That's where he'd go in this side of the partnership. And what it is about Bella Kotchap that I find particularly interesting or impressive is that his reading of the game is high level, but he anticipates danger and steps in to proactively prevent it rather than reacting to things later. That's what good defenders do. So say you've got a striker up here, I'll give you an example, and he's receiving the ball from maybe wide or from high up the pitch. Bella Kotchap knows he needs to go and stop this guy getting it, but he times it really, really well. So by the time the player drops to try and receive the ball, he will instantly snap in and he doesn't let anyone go past him. He's a big, strong lad and he's aggressive with it as well, but he times it. That's what makes it really impressive. He times his runs and his tackles really well. So the striker can get past him, he'll win the ball and break play up. Now, he's not as good at the other things as someone like Antonio Silva, because he's not a ball-playing defender. He's very much a destroyer, and you see it represented in his stats. As you can see, he tends to clear it, tends to have lots more blocks, more interceptions than Antonio Silva does, but he's playing for a team that was relegated and always under pressure. So these numbers will be reflected in how his team was playing. What you can say from watching him play is that he would be a really useful addition to that back line next to Botman. He's 6'3", another tall guy next to Botman who's 6'4". Strikers would not like that. Defenders in the opposition box would not like that. So that gives you a real presence there as well. But he's a clever player. He's may not be the best at distribution, but you get someone who smashes the ball away, and you can't underestimate how useful it is having someone who will just smash people in your back line. And also, because he's young, he's got room to develop and get even better. He's an international already, so he knows the right level. And what you've got is someone who can offer cover for the Schär and Botman partnership, so you have to break it up straight away. You can rely on this that worked so well for them last season. Slowly work his way into the team, and also he provides high level cover for both Botman and Schär. And so that's why we think Bella Kotchap would be a great signing for Newcastle. Antonio Silva is kind of the dream example, but maybe unrealistic. And at the top end, of course, Musa Diabi is the sensible choice. He's a great player. Arda Güler would be the dream long-term choice. Every club in Europe will want to get him. So obviously it's a key window for Newcastle. They're trying to get to the next level, and we'll follow them as they try to get there. And any big transfers we'll try and cover on Tifo IRL. So do please subscribe to see all of those, and also all our other sensible transfer videos, which are coming up soon on this very channel. And that is Newcastle's Sensible Transfers.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.